Welcome to another episode of Victoria's Lounge from Fairmont, the Norfolk. Now, a few weeks ago, NTV ran a documentary by Rose Wangoi that was chronicling the journey and experiences of intersex individuals. These are people who are biologically, for lack of a better term, born in between. We have two individuals who are ready to share their experiences, how they grew up, and how they eventually came to terms with who they are now. Let's meet them.
My name's James Carranza, aka Miruedera. I was brought up in a female role. In secondary school, I went to a girls' boarding school. Most of times, I used to receive love letters from girls. At puberty age, everybody, including my family members, expected me to transit from a girl to a lady, and it went the opposite direction. I'm currently a member of the Intersex task force that was formed in last November by the Office of the Attorney General. I'm the only person who is representing the interest of intersex persons.
I'm Ryan Muiroro Wangoi, initially known as Ruth Wangoi. I was born an intersex 28 years ago until when I get the age of puberty. That's where the things really changed. Growing up as an intersex, it's not a walk on the park. It's full of challenges because you don't fit to be a girl and you don't fit to be a boy. The family was not that supportive. They feel like what I'm going is against the custom, the Christian custom, including the religious itself. After trying to commit suicide more than 7 times with no success, that's when I realized that a real man or a gentleman is not all about running away from the challenges. It's facing them and fighting the challenges. That's when I come up with an idea of having a kind of society or like a foundation to help these people to advocate for their rights and also to fight for their recognition in Kenya.
All right, so let's begin the discussion. James, Ryan, thank you so much for coming in. Let me begin with you, James, just to get a better sense of what your upbringing was like.
Okay, basically it's like, I was assigned as a female, grown as Miruedera till to the age of 20.
Okay.
So, but initially I had my self-realization while I was in Form 3. But I still stick to the norm that I've been brought up as a female, then I should remain like a girl. It has not been a challenge, especially the transitioning, basically, because everybody in the society knew me as a Waidera.
Yes.
So transitioning from Waidera to James, then it becomes a challenge. Basically, people used to call me Dem Charlie. Actually, that's how I was blended, and I lived with it for...
So even as you were raised as a girl, were you still going through that identity fight of I feel maybe more male at a point?
In a human being, there's that part we term as the gender role. So basically, that one, I was doing anything that I was told to do. I did it from a man's perspective. For example, my grandmother would send me to fetch water. Instead of using my back, I'll just use my shoulder like other boys in the village. So from early age, I knew something somewhere was amiss. I even thought that most women look the way I used to look anyway, because I grew up in village where there is strict adherence to the norms, whereby the issue of sex is a problem. You cannot speak out in public. So I thought all women are like gems anyway.
Yeah. Wow. And before I'll get to the whole point of now why you identify as male, let's hear from Ryan in terms of your upbringing and your experience coming up as a child.
What I heard about my mom since immediately when I was born, they were unable to tell whether I was a boy or a girl. But my mom tried to seek for the medical advice in order for her to be advised whether the child is a boy or a girl. But that was a bit challenge for her to do, since my biological dad abandoned us and said that he's not capable of taking over abnormal child, because we believe, or people believe, that this is a curse or abandonment to the family. But my mom decided to raise me as a girl and name me after her beloved mother. But I knew I was not when I was very young, as 5 years old, because I grew up in my grandmother's compound, where I could just heard the rumors with my aunties and cause when I was young, they are talking that I'm not normal. But by the time I was asking myself, I feel like I'm normal, but they always say that I'm abnormal. I never knew which abnormality they were talking about until a certain time when I was in somewhere in lower classes. I was praying with my aunt, who we are almost an age, and we had an argument. That's when she shouted to other children that even Ruth is a boy. So all the other children were like, they want to see and to prove. They went to a point of undressing me, and that's when I realized that I'm different from them. Because there before I only had their saying I'm abnormal, but I never knew what they were talking about. So that's the time I realized that I look differently with other girls. And now it became a challenge to me at that age, because children can't keep a secret, so they got to a point of giving the story in school to other children. So I find that it was hard for me to be in classes. So I started skipping my classes when I was in class 2, where the topic was so hot and I was unable to hold the pressure. And the problem is that I had no one to tell what I was going through. So now my family went to a point of punishing me, saying that I'm growing naughty, I don't want to attend my classes, I don't want to go, so they were punishing me. And now I grew a habit of waking up like I'm going to school, dressing up, and instead of going to school, I look for somewhere to hide and wait for the time I get back to home and pretend I was in class. And that happened for a long time, almost a full term. That's when my mom realized that there is something strange in me. I'm so stressed up, and she tried to ask, but I never had that courage, because I was asking myself, who do I blame? Because my question was, my mom is 100% sure I'm a girl, because that's why she decided to name and brought me as a girl. But me, I feel differently, or I look differently. So I was thinking, maybe I have problem with my brain. What I'm seeing is not the real thing. So that's what I was trying to think, because I never expected that the doctors or the midwife who assisted my mom could assign me the wrong gender, my mom too.
And around what age were you kind of going through this?
That was about between 5 to 8, because I was in lower classes.
Okay.
That's between 5 to 8.
What changes were you going through during puberty that you realized, okay, I'm less of a girl and more of a boy?
I remember I was in class 7, whereby I wanted now to interact with the other girls in order to know what is happening in their bodies, how do they feel. But there is that talks that they are experiencing menses, the breast grow, the hips enlarging. But beside that, for me, I was growing that masculine. So even the fellow guys were going to a point of asking, why do you look more boy rather than being a girl? And they got to a point of nicknaming me Charlie. Now it was stress to me because by that time I was expecting maybe one day I'll wake up and experience the menses, my breast to grow, because I was trying what I can do in order for me to feel being female as what I was assigned, but that never happened. At that time, that's when I realized even the voice is breaking, somehow like BS is coming out, and I thought of maybe going to a point of seeking for the medical advice.
Yes.
Maybe they'll assist me to know what's happening.
Right.
And I took a point of going to a certain public hospital, the nearest public hospital in our area. But the doctor I met there, I can say that she was more confused than I was. She never went to a point of getting the bottom of these.
Yeah.
She thought maybe my hormones are not responding. So she suggested maybe I can take for some pills.
Okay.
Or maybe
Some hormone pills.
Yeah, the hormones pill to help to boost my feminine hormones. That's when I dropped from school while I was in class 8. Because now everyone was like eager to know. Even the girls were telling us, if you are sure you are normal girl, just show us. We are normal girls. Oh, what's the problem? Letting us see what is there. But it was so hard for me. So I dropped from school the first time. And I went to Nakuru town, where I stayed like a street child for a bit. But my mom loves me a bit. She went to a point of looking for me, talking to me. But we never had time to speak direct to the point. Because I realized he was more stressed than I was. And I'm first of 3. Wow. So I never wanted to stress her more.
Yeah.
Because at the point, I was telling myself, when I explain all what I'm going through to mom, she'll be more stressed, and maybe we'll go to a point of losing her, and I'm not able of taking my sibling. So I better die and give mom peace, so that she'll be able to raise other children.
James, before we go to break, what was your puberty journey like? Because that's when your body basically tells you from a biological that you're either going in this direction or that direction.
So I think for me, my turnaround was while I was in Form 3.
Yeah.
So I was in a girls' boarding school. And actually, I was the assistant head girl, graduated and became now the head girl. But I was in Form 4, second term. There's this connection I had between me and my fellow students. So they were sending me a lot of love letters. So one teacher found them. So the school decided that I was trying to instigate lesbianism in school. So I was sent the whole of second term in Form 4. I never studied. And so when I came back, because I fought, actually I was the one who was paying my school fees in high school. So I fought and I went back and I explained to my teachers. I told them there's something wrong with me. You either have to accept me the way I am or just send me away. So the teachers told me, okay, now the choice is yours. It is either you stay in school or stay in school study or become nobody. So I took the option of studying, basically because I was paying school fees. That is, so I knew the importance of education. And so from there, I think the last day I completed high school, that was the last time I wore a skirt or anything feminist related thing. Yeah.
And so that's when you decided I want to be
a man anyway.
Grow up a man from here.
Yeah, because everything in me was male.
Yeah.
And the problem with me anyway was that my genitals while I was young were not fully pronounced. So as I was growing, they became fully pronounced.
Yeah.
So by the time I was completing Form 4, I knew, hey, I'm a dude.
So for you, you knew This is
Yes,
no questions.
there were no questions, but I have had done a lot of tests, some in South Africa, just to prove the government something somewhere is wrong. As much as it is you doctors who are sending me the female role, then your decision was wrong.
All right. On that note, let's take a short break. You're watching Victoria's Lounge. We'll be hearing from James and Ryan now that they've made the decision to live as male, what that meant for them moving forward. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. You're watching Victoria's Lounge. James and Ryan still with me. My goodness, the harrowing experiences of you two growing up as kids. And, you can't blame family because also they've been conditioned in a certain way of you see things as black and white. But like you were saying, James, when you were born where it's not black and white, it's not clear. And growing up, especially as a teenager, I'm very interested to hear what that was like at that time because you're still trying to figure out who you are. Your body's not exactly telling you who you are. How are you able to at least definitively say at a point that I'm male and this is me and I accept it, even though you were raised as a girl?
In any individual or in any person, there comes a time you say, I am the one who makes the society. I contribute to the society. So it's time that the society listens to me. That's how I did it. Because anytime I was wearing a skirt, to me, I felt deep inside as a humiliation. Because wearing a skirt defines you as something else. And the problem is, so somebody sees you with a skirt, then they think you're a lady. So a man comes, wants you. That is a big challenge. Why do you want me? And deep inside, I know I'm a male. Then definitely at a certain age, you realize, we take baths, then you realize. So definitely, I know I've been in a girls' boarding school. I know this is not how ladies are. Then what is there for me to remain as a woman? And basically, the society is constructed, it's about heterosexual.
Now, that goes into the territory of sexual orientation.
Exactly.
Where do you fit, right? But the fact is, there's so many variations of intersex that I think we need to have that explained. Take a look at this.
The commonest is where you have the outside part is difficult to tell. So someone is born with genitals that you can't really place whether it is a boy or a girl. The other, you have someone with testicles, which you can see, and maybe a penis. But if you look inside them, you find they have a womb, and they also have ovaries. So there is that discordance. So it's very difficult to tell what exactly they have. Then the other groups are what we refer to as the sex chromosomes. If you are a man, you'll have 46XY. If you are a woman, you'll have 46XX. So that is what defines sex assignment to a person. And those are the ones that determine whether you develop ovaries, the womb, vagina, or whether you develop the testes or the penis and all that. So there are people who have both. So you're born and you have both X, Y, or you have XXX. So that usually is inherited during the division of the cells in the body. So you may appear female outside, but your behaviors are that of a man. The other is where you have a problem with the development of the ovaries and the testes. So if there's a problem with the development of either, then it means that you'll not be able to produce those hormones. And if you don't produce those hormones, then you do not assume the physical characteristics. For instance, a woman is defined by her shape. These things start changing as you reach puberty. A voice, they'll have breasts and all that. So those are the characteristics, how they look. So if you do not have ovaries or the ovaries are underdeveloped, then you'll not develop that way. You will have a figure like that of a man. Your breast may be underdeveloped. You may have a hoarse voice. You may develop a beard. So surgery is usually a last resort, and it's not actually very popular, because what you want to do is you want to assign the role to the individual. But yes, of course, where the external parts are not well formed, for instance, someone has vagina that is not well formed, or the penis that is not properly formed, and you're not sure which one is which, there is the role of reconstructive surgery. Intersex is actually a disorder, or disorders of sexual development, DSDs, and not intersex is more of a lay word that we use just to understand. Transgender, to the contrary, is a man assuming a role of a woman, and vice versa. A woman who assumes the role of a man. So their organs are well developed. If you examine them and look at them, they have everything. If a woman, she'll have shape, she'll have a breast, she'll have everything. If you do the scan, you'll find she has ovaries, she has a womb, she has her menses, but she behaves like a man, dresses like a man, tries to talk like one, hangs out with men, and such kind of thing. So that is the difference.
I mean, now as you're coming up, was anyone in your family, maybe in your group of friends, teachers, anyone who at least had the sense to walk you through this identity crisis, for lack of a better term, you know?
It is identity crisis,
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah.
For myself, I think I wouldn't, because I never had anyone. Well, I was in puberty. Then it was a very big challenge for my mother. She went to depression because of rejection, because, you know, she gave birth to an abnormal child. So eventually she collapsed. She's mentally challenged at the moment, because of me anyway. I tried to fight as an individual, as James Carranza. So most of the time I used to be alone. So when you don't have time to socialize with people, then they do not get your weaknesses. So I did it through that. Having no friends around me, I was able to maneuver through puberty.
That is amazing that you're able to do that by yourself, because for any other teenager, you know, it's like the world is about to end. And here you are navigating it by yourself, you know, and not really having a support system. For you, Ryan, you mentioned, you know, family, they thought of you as a girl, raised you as a girl, then they labeled you as a troubled child. You know, because, and not knowing the struggles you were going through, you couldn't be in school. Why? Because you were being teased and being ridiculed for something it was not your fault. It was not your fault, you know. So when did you come to the decision now? Because you already realized, I'm not a girl. But when did you make the decision to now say that I'm actually male?
Actually, what I can say, by making the decision, it was very hard for me.
Yeah.
Because like my colleague have mentioned, I also fight all the stigma all alone within one there. You know, even if in school there is these extra lessons for girls and boys. So I was always attending the girls' lessons. But that was not helpful to me, because they are taught how to use pads and doing all that. But for me, I feel that I don't deserve to be here. But I never had a chance to interact with other boys, so to learn. So I fought it all alone. I thought now, beside what's between my legs, I need a life, I need to survive. And now, in order for me to survive, and I need an ID in order to be able, maybe I can look for a job or do something for a living. And I managed to have one with the female's identity without realizing what I was doing is a total mess to me, because the ID became a threat to me. Like I remember the time when I went to a certain bank whereby I wanted to do some transaction, and I gave my ID to the teller. I thought the teller was at the point of serving me, but I was surprised when I saw the police. And I was harassed because they were saying I'm doing the I'm trying to impersonate someone.
exactly.
I'm trying to do someone else transactional. And that's when I managed to talk to my mom. And I explained how I really feel and what I know. And that's when she explained to me that she knew it even immediately when I was born, because I was born with the condition known as hypospadia.
Okay, so what is that exactly?
Hypospadia is when a child is born with the penis. Is not in the normal size, just short with a curvature and a hole on the bottom.
Okay.
So you are going to a point where even thing you need to scoot like a girl, you can't pee while studying like other boys. And now instead of the hole being on the tip of the penis, is somewhere down where the curvature, so the penis is not straight. So it looks like a crit.
How old were you when your mother actually admitted that she knew this?
I was like, my question was, you knew. I was shocked at the point. So you knew, because all that time I was saying, maybe it's something that developed after.
Yes.
Maybe I was born normal.
But then something
there's something changed. So I thought it's something that they don't know. So at first I was shocked. So you knew. And why did you decide to keep quiet all this time? What I have gone through, it's your fault.
Yeah.
I remember telling her it was your fault. But she explained to me, I had no choice. I had never had courage to face you. Again, you are very harsh. You never even wanted to have a talk with me, because I never wanted to face mom directly, because each and every time I tried, my mom was shedding tears. And I never wanted to see her in that condition. So I was shocked. But later, I was happy to know that so they knew. So it will not be a challenge to me. And that's when I called the entire family and I told them, now enough is enough. And I have decided, if you agree with me, yes. If you don't, it's not a choice. I'm not requesting, because I'm saying what is within me. So I remember telling them, it's their choice now to decide whether they want to still to be my family or not.
To accept you or not.
But it's not a request to them.
Yeah.
I'm just telling them the reality. But I can say they had no choice. They admitted. Other apologized for what they have done earlier. They have talked, they have harassed me, because they thought maybe I was just trying to fix the things, then pretend. And I was happy.
It's good. Hold that thought, Ryan, because when we come back, we'll be talking about the psychological impact and what toll it takes on you mentally as you're navigating through this journey. Let's take a short break here on Victoria's Lounge. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. You're watching Victoria's Lounge. Still here with James and Ryan. We also have Julie Githiri-Goko. Thank you for coming in. What do you make of what you've heard so far? Because there's always that issue and that conflict between identity, and then there's also the biological aspect of it and someone trying to figure out, who am I?
So there's going to be a disconnect between identity, the biology, the sexual expression, and the sexual orientation.
Right.
If we look at sexual identity, it's, am I a woman, am I a man, or am I, a term which can be sort of bounced around is genderqueer, where you're sort of somewhere in the middle and neither identifying with each. If we look at the identity, are we more feminine, more masculine, or is there something more androgynous about somebody's identity, how they feel within themselves, how they may look? Sexual expression, are they feeling more feminine? Are they able to identify more as a woman or as a man? Or is it just not fitting in either? And that's okay, because we're so binary when it comes to gender, and it's trying to have a more fluid approach to identity.
Right. You mentioned someone kind of fitting in between. And, James and Ryan have, of course, chosen one side, which is male, but there's some people who say, I can't. Some days I'll be female.
Yeah.
Some days I'll be male. How do I kind of come to terms with that?
See, society struggles with that because we're used to fitting everybody into a little box of you're male, you're female, you go to the labour ward, you deliver a baby, and from birth it's gendered. And with that, that's what we know to be correct. And when something doesn't fit into that, we struggle with how we're going to make it fit.
Okay, dating, for instance, relationships. How do you go about that? Sorry, I have to ask that because I know the audience will be wondering as well.
Maybe the issue that people always think, so my orientation. And I always say that I wouldn't be fighting to be recognized as a male if I'm dealing with male in relationships. I would have taken that advantage of being assigned as a female and get married to a male. But I'm a male, so I deal with women. Yeah.
And what about you, Ryan? In terms of, because you mentioned some very dramatic encounters you've had with individuals who did not understand how to deal with you to the point where you're being physically assaulted. But how do you deal with the stigma?
Actually, I managed to fight it a bit after I left my home area. I went to a new place.
Yeah.
Whereby I feel that it was a bit safer because much people does not know about me. Yeah. And I know it was easy for me when I introduced myself as a man, rather than being a lady. Because even now I can stand here and introduce myself as Ruth. It really so much questions. Why Ruth and you don't rock? But I know that when I introduce myself as a man, no one has a question in it. So I can say the challenges are still there.
Have you tried to legally change is that possible, legally change your identity?
Okay, as per now, in order for you to change, there is not, that's why we try to engage the state.
Yes.
And we have the task force on board that is discussing all those issues, because it's not that easy to change. Like my colleague have tried to change even the NEC documents, because you have changed, you have the ID as James, for example, but you have school, the academic certificates under the name Mary. So you have to, how do you call it? We have you have two identity. It's like you are James and at the same time you are Mary.
Right.
Or help him on that. See, as James, I always say that any institution within the state, I've gone. And I will start with NEC. They say that to them, they do not change names because the certificates will lose the quality, despite taking all the medical records. So from there, I went to the office of the Ombudsman. So they told me that education at that moment is not important, and so I should start with birth certificate. Then I was wondering, you are here standing explaining to me based on your merits because you have the certificates. Now you are telling me education is not important? I went to the office of the Attorney General where they have the Birth and Registration Act. Yeah. So they told me that you must go and come with a letter from your chief to show that you were born. And I was wondering, but I'm here. Wow, how do I need to go and ask that I was born? It's only that I came to realize changing a name is not an issue. But there's a gap in the laws that they do not, give us a right to change the birth mark, the sex mark.
Right.
So you may change your names from Mirwedera to James Carranza.
Yeah.
But that sex mark, it is not anywhere stipulated in our laws. Wow. So it remains. So is there any need for me to be James Carranza and a female? There's no need.
I mean, and that's a problem a lot of intersex individuals go through, Julie.
Because even then you're struggling with your own identity and the environment doesn't welcome you as the gender which you've assigned yourself to as an adult. So how do you get to a point where you feel accepted?
Right.
You see, the laws, I am not aware, but I know that 2014, there was a very crucial bill that was passed and signed by the president. Section 2 defines who an intersex person is. That an intersex person is a person who has both male and female reproductive organs and certified by a medical doctor. Now, that one was to reaffirm the Birth and Death Registration Act, Section 28, that says that a document can be changed if a doctor made a mistake on documentation. But the question is, I am born natural, so how comes I am a mistake?
Yeah, and you're being told by the law. Yeah.
I'm not a mistake. I'm a product of normal people.
Yeah.
Don't need to tell me I'm a mistake.
So the law doesn't affirm you as
Not
being.
at the moment.
No.
So definitely there's need for some legal definition
Yeah.
to give you room to be in society. But Julie, I wanted to engage you on this in terms of parents
Yeah.
and how they need to engage. Because look, Ryan, until he was much older, found out from his mother that she knew all along.
Yes.
All along, but didn't talk about it. James, more or less the same situation.
Yes.
So what should parents do? How should they engage, even from the point of birth? Because there's also pressure of having the child go through surgery, for instance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's difficult because as a parent, as I said earlier, you leave the hospital with a gendered baby. But then that's to say that they're not going to do that. But it's being open and transparent with the medical teams to say that actually we don't know whether there's an ambiguous genitalia, or because the inside may be different from what is reflected outwardly. So is it about waiting? Is it about letting the child grow into themselves and be able to express their gender in a comfortable, loving environment, whereby then the parents can say, actually, we have a daughter. If we had then assigned a male gender, we would now be in a real situation which is difficult for them as they grow. Because even though they're assigning the gender at birth, come puberty, something else is going to happen, as we can clearly see. There's many challenges which are going to come through life. And I'm sure there are a percentage of intersex people who don't even get to grow. They take challenges in their own life. They maybe end their life due to challenges and difficulties. And how can we support someone to live in an environment without stigma?
And as we wrap up, I'd like to hear from you, James and Ryan, in terms of what you want people to know about your experiences. Because again, I keep going back to that whole fact of it's not fair that we force some individuals to identify and put themselves forth in something that's very private. Really, it's none of their business. And how do we make this a norm where you no longer have to say, I'm choosing this or that, but be who I am?
I think for me, for a state to recognize, then the intersex persons themselves must stand and demand for that space. It is through that, then now that the society will start to understand, oh, there's something else. And it is through that they shall create a space for us. So for me is that intersex persons, this is their chance. They need to speak out, demand your space. Those who are privileged should help them. Yeah.
Ryan?
Okay, as what I can say, there is a lot to be done in order for this issue, because we need much awareness to get in order for the public to know, because we are these children, or we are at our churches, schools, so like everyone needs to know that intersex do exist, because it's like a charity to them. Some of them, they even never heard about this, so they really don't know what they are facing. So we need to create awareness in order for each and everyone to understand, and the state has a big role to do this. Like I was trying to think, like in our curriculums, these things are not well taught. Yeah. Like even if they are there in Form 3 in genetics, for me, I think that's too late, because you fight with your puberty, and at earlier as from 9 to 14, that is in class 6, class 7. That's where these things need to appear. Right. By the time you are fighting to know who you are, instead of waiting for you to get into Form 3, that you'll be able to learn that there is mixed of chromosome and all that. Because even like 88% 90% of the intersex are school dropout, including I. So we never even had a chance to reach to Form 3, whereby we will understand. So again, like now I've met parents who have confessed that they have killed their children, because like if you're a mother, you give birth to a child that you even don't know whether the child is a boy or a girl. You don't want even your husband to know, because you're afraid you may lose your marriage and lose all that. So you go to a point of killing the child. If you survived not to be killed when you are young, you'll commit suicide or you kill yourself during the puberty station, because you not be able to hold the pressure all alone. So there is much need to be done, and I can say it's a role for everyone to understand and go to a point of getting to the bottom of this. As much as we demand for the room, we need everyone to help us, because if you are a teacher, those children are there in school. If you are a pastor, those children are there, or those people are there, our churches, and everywhere, because they are everywhere.
Great point. Julie, I'll finish with you in terms of what can society do to make this more of a conducive environment for everyone to exist?
That point of educating, it's creating awareness from grassroots level. When somebody is in school and they're learning biology, we're thinking actually there's sex that we can talk about, and within that we can talk about sexual identity and expression. So we're normalizing our conversations with children and being more inclusive and more open, and that in itself reduces the stigma and the shame that can come with that.
Thank you so much, James, Ryan. I know we could exhaust this. Julie, thank you so much. But the whole point is just to begin the conversation.
Yes,
have people to understand, and then they can make their choices after. But to know at least your experiences and appreciate your experiences as well, because it's part of the Kenyan experience. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Fairmont, the Norfolk, for hosting us. Have a wonderful evening. Keep these conversations going in your homes, in your schools, in your churches, in your mosques, everywhere. So at least we can create a conducive environment for everyone to exist. Thanks for watching. Have a good evening.